A prominent OBGYN organization says they want unlimited access to abortion and that pro-life advocates are promoting misinformation on the subject. Joining us tonight, one of the strongest pro-life advocates who just happens to be an OBGYN himself, a decorated Army Special Forces veteran who served as a flight surgeon and diving medical officer and retired as a lieutenant colonel. Please welcome back to the show. He's obviously one of our favorites because we just keep inviting him back, Dr. Omar Hamada. Dr. Hamada, great to have you back. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I was somewhat surprised with really a fairly radical statement that came out by the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, that they basically are advocating for unrestricted abortion. These are people who are supposed to deliver babies, not take them out.
Exactly. It is very shocking, especially for those of us who have trained as obstetricians and gynecologists and belong to that organization. Ever since early medical school training, we learned that we have two patients, the baby and the mother.
Yeah.
And now that baby is in mortal danger throughout the entirety of pregnancy if they would have their way and say.
Why has it come to this? Is it a political thing? Is it scientific enlightenment? Where have we ended up here?
You know, I've asked myself that question, not just for this issue, but for so many issues that we're struggling with today in America. And I think it's just a difference of worldviews that are no longer even just divergent, but are in complete opposition to one another. So at the very base, I think it's spiritual warfare. I think it's life versus a culture of death.
I know that you are unapologetic as a Christian believer. You have strong convictions about that. And I'm making an assumption that some of your convictions about life and your profession as an obstetrician come from that you believe that everyone is gloriously and fearfully made by God.
That's a good assumption. And it's based in science as well. I mean, some of the things that we see that ACOG is doing now, they're trying to redefine what words mean. They're trying to limit the use of certain words to really push a certain agenda, even telling us that things like late term doesn't make sense when it does, that there's no such thing as a heartbeat until the heart is fully formed in an adult fashion, essentially, at 17 or 18 weeks. But I mean, heartbeat, a heart is even a clump of cells that is pumping in rhythmic synchronous contraction to move blood forward. That's a heart.
Yeah.
And we know that that occurs at 6 weeks of gestation or 4 weeks from conception.
And that's why it's so difficult for us to watch this, and the language has become reproductive health. There's nothing healthy that's going on, especially for the baby, but here's the part we don't ever hear. There's risk to the mother. So why don't we ever hear about risk to the mother in going through a surgical procedure that is not natural? It is an unnatural surgical procedure to take a baby out of the womb for the sole purpose of killing it.
Now they're trying to say that there is no risk, that it's a very safe procedure, that it's not surgery, and that that isn't a baby, when all those things are false. So we see that there's a certain agenda that's being promulgated. Even this whole thing with Dobbs, there was a very rational, reasonable compromise in a secular, pluralistic society of 15 weeks. And even liberal Europe limits it to 10 to 12 weeks in most European countries. But 15 weeks wasn't good enough. They wanted full access all the way to full 40-week term. And that's why Dobbs went to the Supreme Court, and that's why Roe v. Wade got overturned.
The next big healthcare debate in this country looks like it's going to be COVID all over again. And there's hints that there will be pressure to put a mask mandate back on us. Yeah. What should we do? What should we say to this if the government comes back and says, you can't go into a store, you can't get on an airplane unless you wear a mask?
Resist. I mean,
good. I'm going to tell them, my doctor told me to resist.
That's right. Well, we know masks don't really work. They're not very effective for those who are receptive. If you're sick, of course, they help catch some of the larger molecules. But we also know that for decades, coronavirus that's responsible for COVID has been responsible for 30% of the common cold. A weaponized virus escaped and caused the pandemic. Now that has transformed more towards wild-type virus. So what we're seeing now is primarily little more than the common cold again.
So, it shouldn't scare people to death.
Not at all.
And, the vaccines were pushed, and many of us thought, oh, that's going to be helpful. But they didn't tell us the truth. They said we wouldn't get COVID if you took the vaccine. Everybody got COVID anyway.
Exactly. And now they're saying if you're vaccinated, you're more susceptible to catch the new strains of COVID.
Which is really bizarre and very disturbing. So, as my gynecologist, I'm just going to ask you, should I get this next shot? I know it shocks you, but I identify as one of his patients right now, so it's perfectly good.
So did my Special Forces guys. That was a big joke.
I bet that was.
It was.
There's a reason we keep having you back. We love having you. You make a lot of sense, and we look forward to your next time with us. Dr. Hamada, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. Keep up with Dr. Hamada on social media. You can follow the links that we've got for you at our website, Huckabee.tv. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I hope you will now. The button is just below this video, and there's a little bell next to it. If you click on those, YouTube will reluctantly start letting you know when we've got a new video uploaded.